Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Peter Jennings, and I go by CSURAM88 across the daily fantasy industry, and excited to be back again here at FantasyLabs doing a lineup review for NBA. I got back from Hawaii on Sunday and got back into the swing of things on Sunday, and then was fortunate to have a really nice team on DraftKings. I rolled one team that I put in the tournaments as well as cash games that I'm going to review. I'm also going to take a look at some of the other teams that did well in some big contests here on DraftKings. So the first contest was the Thunderdome. Fortunate to take second. It's a $5,300 buy-in. And the team that I ran ended up doing pretty well. So I had Jordan Clarkson at the point guard position. He looked like he was going to be a chalk play just because of positional scarcity initially. He had dual eligibility on DraftKings at point guard and shooting guard, and he was coming off a huge game against Philly the night before. So it was a tough spot for the Lakers, their third game in 4 nights, which made it tough to load up on this game, even though it had the highest total. The Nuggets were a 13.5-point favorite, so there was a lot of blowout risk, but I still like Clarkson, and he was going to be much more chalky before the Nicholas Batum news, which made Jeremy Lamb the ultimate chalk on the slate. So I still ended up rolling him because he fit with my team, and I think he was a pretty good play, not a great play on DraftKings. Jeremy Lamb ended up being 100% owned here in the Thunderdome, so all the sharps were on him. Just a very clear play with the Batum being out at a position that was tough to fill. The price tag was just way too cheap on him as a starter, and everyone picked up on that. So you can see here that, in these spots, Jeremy Lamb, even though there's some game theory potentially to look at in spots in the NBA, when there's just a clear-cut value, it's almost impossible to fade him. And obviously all the sharp guys just went with Jeremy Lamb. Gallinari was my small forward here. I liked him quite a bit in this game. Wilson Chandler was ruled out, so I thought there was a good opportunity for him, more minutes, and I really like Gallinari just in general. He's been consistent, hits a good amount of threes. A little concerned with the blowout, but he fit really well on this team at only 6,200. Paul Millsap was the next uber chalk on the slate, only 6,900 going against the Spurs, which is obviously the best matchup, but they were thin, and I really just thought he was way too cheap. He's done extremely well at that price tag, and unfortunately just had a dud of a game relatively. But I don't have any regrets about this play, and he was 75% owned in this spot. Took Vucevic as my center. He's just been going off with a really high usage rate, even in low minutes, getting up a lot of shots, and I really like the spot here going against Sacramento. Felt really comfortable with him at center, and he was just a really nice price tag. So I built kind of a balanced lineup here, as you can see, and Vucevic really fit the mold with his team. Rubio is the next guy who ended up being pretty chalky, and if you didn't have Rubio last night, you were in big trouble. I was really fortunate. He had just an incredible start to the game and carried it through with 62.25 fantasy points. So very fortunate with Ricky Rubio. He's been playing more minutes now as the Minnesota Timberwolves make a push for the playoffs, and I think he's going to be a pretty good play. His price really should go up here on DraftKings. If he stays below 7K, he's an awesome play pretty much every night. I went with Marvin Williams as my next play, and this is really the play that put it over the top. Marvin Williams has just quietly been really, really good recently. You can see here 40 points, 48 points, 50 points, 47 DK points, and he's not really that kind of player. I mean, he's only averaging 25 fantasy points on the season, but this recent uptick, he's just been playing very well, shooting the ball relatively efficiently and getting a ton of rebounds. So I felt pretty good about taking him. It was honestly one of the last pieces that fit was Clarkson and Marvin Williams, just trying to figure out how to make them work, and it just panned out for me. So I would like to say it was a genius play, but I definitely ran well with Marvin Williams, getting 47 DK points, and that was a big key. I did have 3 Charlotte guys, which I needed the game to stay competitive for it to work out, and I don't mind it because Batum was out. That goes into my last pick, which was Kemba Walker here. Ended up having a good game, started off pretty slow, but felt pretty good about taking him. He's done well against Chicago overall this year, and I just thought it was a good spot for him. And he was a nice play with the balanced roster. So good team overall. It was a high-scoring night. Felt really good about my process. And I ran this team across all my contests and was fortunate to take second here. Here was the guy who took first. Two Minds Bluff. Jamal Murray really came through, and that was one guy I loved initially and wish I would have figured out a way to get him. Had a great fourth quarter there when it was a blowout. I talked about it on the live show. Well, there's a lot of ways for Jamal Murray to meet value given the game environment. Jameer Nelson could have been ruled out, even though he did play, which would have given him more minutes. And in the blowouts, he's still going to see time because they want to get him as many minutes and exposure as they can. So Murray, Jeremy Lamb, Kawhi Leonard, who ended up being pretty popular, a really nice play here. He was definitely a play once he was ruled in, given how thin San Antonio was. Then Karl Anthony Towns, who I really liked overall in the night. I did play him on FanDuel. Really nice play. Choosing him over Jokic paid big dividends because Jokic didn't play in the fourth quarter. Ivan Zubac, who went off, and I was surprised he wasn't more heavily owned. I think people were, or Vaka Zubac, I'm sorry. I'm surprised he wasn't more heavily owned, given that he got the start the night before, but they gave him a ton of run, and it definitely looks like the Lakers are trying to get him more experience. So pay attention to him. I imagine his price tag is going to come up soon. Also played Ricky Rubio, who went off, like I talked about, Willie Cauley-Stein, and Dwight Howard. So really nice team here for Two Minds Bluff, and congrats on the Thunderdome victory. So the double up was the same team. We'll take a look here at some of the other teams. Towns was 31%. Buddy Hield only 6%. That's someone we talked about. Did play Marco Bellinelli for savings as well. But basically had a couple punts in here to get in Towns, in addition to some of these other chalk plays like Lamb, like Rubio, like Kemba. So you can see here in the $250 double up, Jeremy Lamb was 90.9% owned. And then we had the Power Dunk, which was the really big contest on DraftKings last night. $150,000 to first, $444 entry. Great contest. I was fortunate to take 78th, which was a cashing line. You can see here it paid $900, so a little bit over 100% ROI. And yeah, I felt good about it. The number one team was just incredible. You look here, Patty Mills, Jeremy Lamb 84.1% owned. Marvin Williams, Vucevic, Rubio, Towns, and Elfrid Payton just had a ton of guys go off. And really, Will Barton at 1.9% was one of the keys last night. Definitely a game theory play. I didn't think he was going to be very heavily owned either. If you look at his game log, he had been pretty marginal, but the blowout really suited him here, which is what enabled him to get the 30 minutes. So congrats to Whiteout83 on taking it down. And I really hope the live show was helpful for you guys. Make sure you're tuning into those inside the lab. I think it's something I'm really proud of that we're doing here at Fantasy Labs. And certainly doing the show is helpful to really get zoned in. And it worked out with a good night here on DraftKings. So as always, looking to see more Fantasy Lab subscribers at the top of the leaderboard.